So I'm just going to let you know right now, I am fully aware that I am not on camera. I'm doing that on purpose. I hadn't planned on being on camera at all. I am reviewing some notes and also going through some, well, at least one book, and I felt compelled to record a lot of this connections that I'm making here. And I also wanted to make sure, as I am writing a book, I continue to have, the connections that I have made between the research I have done. Now, for my day job, I am an educator and I have a passion for cognitive health and research and all that good stuff. I totally nerd out on that. And my, how can I say this? My research over the years has turned into, I don't know, I don't want to say obsession, but it has turned into a passion, definitely. And it stemmed from, feeling your mortality. I'll just say that. So, as we go through some dark times in our lives, you know, we start to question a lot of things. And we don't always make great choices. I'll just say that. But as I am learning more about how to make sure my mind works at its optimum, at its best, um, I think I've also stumbled into, I think at one point I would say I was always spiritual, and that is true. But I think this was also more of a catalyst to get me into a different layer. I don't want to say level, but layer of spirituality, and not just um, taking I guess the perception of what others have told me what spirituality is, and truly just embrace what it is actually. If that makes sense. If it What it is actually. Okay. So I'm trying to make sure that I am on camera, and so yeah, so I'm just making sure that, what I am learning is sticking, and it is. And that's a part of the joy of learning about how your brain learns. um, and what I've been reading on is a book that we've read as a school before. I work at a school. Um, and I, definitely can tell you this book. It is Culturally Responsive Teaching and the Brain by Zaretta Hammond. And while this, okay, so I can recommend this book, but for educators. And the reason why I say that is because it's kind of like a hybrid self help um, book for teachers, right? So that is the best way I can describe it. Sorry. So I've read this book before, and I guess our school decided we should have a nice reread of this, um, you know, as a refresher. And this book I like a lot in a lot of ways because it diverts from the traditional American model of education that most people are aware of and traumatized by. So the compulsory aspect of school came out of a need for training a workforce in the industrial revolution. So this is my polymath mathing now. So as I am moving into history and understanding how did that affect the current systems that we live in now. So because around the time of, let's see, late 1800s, this is also the time of the Civil War. This is also a time of lots of imperialism. Now, a lot of people hear the word colonist or whatever, but imperialism is the next level of colonists, okay? And I think a lot of people who don't know, of course you don't know, but a colonist colonizes, takes over, yes, but then imperialism is the next level, okay? So when you are looking to basically take over the world, you start embedding things into an environment for its longevity, for your continued control over it. So this is where now people talk about religion. Yes, religion and certain I don't know. Yeah, all the things that come along with at least the religion aspect of it. But then there's the whole like cultural attitudes. Earlier today, as I'm geeking out again, I was listening to a documentary about the Cherokee Indians because, again, I'm an educator and this is a part of what I do. We do teach that. So, remembering or rehearing that when the natives, the indigenous people here in the United States were being basically genocide, and there was different approaches. So there are people who wanted to talk about it, people who wanted to resist. It was a lot. And one of the things that I heard in this documentary was how the United States tried to influence their culture as a tactic. So influencing the minds of others for their own self harm, if that is the better word for that. So, one thing a lot of people, I know I'm going deep, sorry, it's free flow. So, a lot of people don't realize that the Iroquois Nation tribes in in the in North America are matriarchal, and that just means they are woman, not, I don't want to say woman centered, but female centered, okay, where women had lots of rights that Western Abrahamic religions developed themselves into, where the indigenous people gave powers, not all power. And see, that's the difference. It's not that in a matriarchal society a man would not have any power. That is not nowhere near what that is. It means there is a more fairness there. There is a power, not a force there. Patriarchal societies force. Matriarchals understand that there is power, energy within. Okay? So we are ever regenerating, right? Women, we do, right? So the Western Europeans had a patriarchal society. They they didn't like how the natives here ran their societies. And so they influenced them to adapt their cultures. And it happens even to this very day. Okay, that's why when I'm working with people, I please encourage them to do the mental diet, detach from media and all this other stuff. Even if you can't completely detach, you can at least run an inventory of, is this necessary in my life right now, so because there's some things that you're going to have to still be attached to, but for the main part of this, most people don't realize how influenced they really are. And that's the creepy sad part of it. But I think we are all, as a society, more and more people are starting to wake up a lot more. And I also believe that this is a tricky time where we could stumble into out of one situation back into a similar but different situation. What I mean is, I've had people come to me uh, who are new to the spirituality path, and they will look for a guru, basically. And it's like, uh, I mean, there's not a one. There can't be a one. In spirituality, it is all. We are all. It's all us. We are it. And I think there is still a lot of people looking for that one person that is going to have all the answers, when really, if you can see me, hear me, know that I am still on this realm, we're all still learning. Okay, so there is not one person that has it all. There's some that are knowing, some who are knowing, learning to practice, and then there are some knowing and practicing. Okay, and there's a lot of people waking up to knowing, and they're trying to jump to practicing, but they can't. And that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway, so um I'm rereading this book, for my day job. And the education system in the last almost 200 years, I would say, is based on trying to train a person to turn a cog, okay, in a factory, or to type a report sitting at a desk, okay? So that has been the model, and that had been the imperialistic. So, there was the physical imperialism, and then there was the economic imperialism at the same time, all into the 20th century. And again, we could talk about the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and all that other good stuff. But there's that whole idea of legacy, right? And there are people who wanted legacy. And in order for that to happen, you've got to stack the deck in your favor. And that's what they did, you know? But now it seems as though we are in an informational economic. I need to write that down. Like, I feel like if I have to name what we are in the movement now, we are in an intellectual economic, yeah, an intellectual economic movement. Now, I could also say, instead of intellectual, informational, because just because people say things doesn't make it intelligent. So maybe rethinking that title. But we are in a new movement where there are people on the news saying that, oh, nobody wants a job anymore, and this business is closing and that business is closing, and oh, we can't raise the, you know, the interest rates up more and stop people from spending money, but they're not saying what's going on underneath that, because I think media knows, but they don't know. I think they have the flashlight and they're flashing it in a general direction and they see it, but they're just not focusing on it. So what is happening is people are here. If you're online with me right now, you're here. Okay? You're not looking to fill your day, an 8-hour day, with turning a cog or typing a report all day. You're looking to find a way away from it on some level. It There are some people who are abusing these new avenues for freedom by, sitting and watching social media all day, and what's on that. And that's what I mean by it. That it's like you kind of have to pick and choose and really, really be mindful and think about, why am I consuming this? You know, why am I consuming this? And there's just got to be a more meaningful way. So when it comes to learning and education, a lot of people know it's broken, at least in the United States, and they treat it like daycare. I'm just going to be honest. Because that's what it was. That's what it turned out to be. So the master plan was, all right, so we need more people in factories instead of the countryside and the fields. So as they, migrate to the big cities, and we now have factories for them to live in, and now they have places, and oh wait, yeah, we can have the 5-year-old working in the factory, but oh no, we can't. Oh no. So somebody writes a, book or, article. Next thing you know, oh yeah, so kids need to have rights and we need to send them somewhere. So they maybe, ooh, idea, maybe if we send them to school, teach them how to work factory pulleys and buttons, then we will have our continued workforce. But that also solves the problem of, what are kids going to be doing all day if we can't get them at the factory now? So, and then that also compelled these companies to stretch out the work day. And this is all in the same time where the Union started and World War II ish ended. Okay. This is, or no, let me take that back, 40s. So this is also where a lot of change was happening. And this is the fallout, or the beginning of the fallout, of imperialism, where, the same 7 countries can't own the whole world, right? So everybody's like, okay, no, we don't want this. No, thank you. And we are moving ourselves into more stable, situations where, okay, yeah, the men come back from the war and women want their rights because they were doing it, and then now they say go sit back at home. It's like, no, 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 no. So the master legacy plan of these robber barons turned conglomerates and whatnot, the ruling families of the United States and now the world, is that, oh, so women, they were working, so maybe we can have them continue to work. Maybe we can send the children to school to learn how to do the work. Now we got 2 more people in the workforce, plus we got at least 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 little ones training to go into the workforce for us. So this is how it all works, and I'm so glad I got this recorded. But anyway, um, I am, I don't know, I'm learning that more and more people are starting to realize the education system is garbage and that they're looking for more ways to do this. And, when 2020 hit, people didn't know about in okay education. One of the running jokes is all these acronyms and stuff all the time. So SEL, social emotional learning. So no one really as a mass knew about social emotional learning, and definitely did not know about any CRT, which ironically this book was written, I'm trying to see, I can't remember when it was. This particular one was published long before, because like I said, I've read it before. um, Cultural responsive teaching is CRT. And recently, I'm just going to tell you, as of last year, um, they've changed that acronym to culturally responsive classrooms, because people don't think clearly sometimes. Yes, so this book was written, or at least copyrighted, 2015. So, yeah, um, there is a movement, and studies are, have shown, talked about the prison, the school to prison pipeline, and all the other troubling things, where we've got to make some changes. We've got to make some changes, and just like a practice of, mm, the law is a practice, medicine is a practice, education is also a practice. Okay? And it is my hope that more and more people, when they learn better, they do better. So, yeah, so now there is an explosion of SEL learning in teaching, and there is more um, understanding of why is it important that Johnny has breakfast in the morning, and why is it important that Becky Sue goes to bed at an appropriate time at night, so there's more answers for educators to give to families, because look, I'm just going to again tell the truth. Like, we do raise the kids. We are the daycare. Like, we're there to teach their brains, but we're also there with their bodies. And we need to know this stuff. So yeah, so I'm glad that more teachers are getting more of this background too, and I hope in colleges they're getting this also. And what this book, what I can recommend, I can recommend the whole entire book, quite honestly, but I think it would be most useful for educators, you know. But if parents wanted to read this book, I would totally be like, yes, read it, please. um, but one of the things that also sticks out for me, and that a lot of people, this is where the trauma that I understand a lot of people have when it comes to their school days, that is trying to change. So when I tell people, say like at a dinner party or whatever, and they ask me, "Whoa, what do you do?" I was like, "Oh, I'm a teacher. I teach blah blah blah," and then they're like, "Oh, remember my," either one of two things happen. So you get the the this the look of sadness or desperation or weirdness, and then there's the a glossing over of a fond memory of a teacher or something like that. So yeah, you're gonna get one or the other. Most times, in my situation, I end up getting the person that wants to give me the negative. And yeah, so, and again, I can't blame them. You know, like we lived in a time where they were basically training us to be little worker bees. And my, sorry, again, I'm thinking of literally of the last party that I went to and that happened. Um, but learning is when your brain is in a relaxed, calm, and focused state. I hope I've said that correctly. And I don't think it's in this book. I think it's in a different teaching. But when your body is relaxed, when your mind is less stressed, obviously, and this is how I teach the kids. It's like you can't learn if you're too busy thinking about like, oh, I'm hot or I'm cold or I'm hungry or sleepy. You know, all of those things. Your people keep using the lizard brain as a thing, but I think I've heard new terminology around that. But I am going to say lizard brain because it's just that your basic instinctual, reflex brain. So you can't learn new things if you're too busy just trying to survive, basically, right? And you cannot learn if you are too busy stressing out or being afraid, you know? If you don't get your basic needs met of the food and the shelter and the rest, and then you are afraid, okay, or enraged or in some kind of emotional altered state, you're not going to learn. Okay? And so the next part or half of this book kind of talks about that a little bit, about how what educators can do to basically make a learning agreement for the school year, for their class, for their students. And it's not of an expectation, and this is where I do see a lot of educators make this assumption, just like you are traumatized at the old models of school where they told you to sit in your desk, when to go to the bathroom, when to do this, when to do that. There are still teachers who are still in the system thinking that that's what they should be doing, even though we're teaching them otherwise, right? And they're still doing it. And then they get upset about why this new thing doesn't work when you're expecting and still doing a lot of the same things that you internally took in. So it's almost like even educators have to brainwash yourself out of the old model. Like, yeah, and again, this is what my school does. Like, I don't know what other schools will do when it comes to learning these new things. It's going to be interesting to see. But we do our own think tanks and our own kind of reflective practices to try to really get out of the old training in order to train the next level of person that's going to, make our world hopefully a better place. And I'm just, yeah, I am grateful for this book. And then what was also getting me was I was also looking back over some notes and a lecture that I watched this summer about the cerebral spinal fluid. So I'm trying to decide on if I want to do a part, stop this and do a part two, because I really want people to hang with me on this. So I may stop this and do a part two and talk about um, the learning that I had about the cerebral spinal fluid. And I think I've made the connections are being made now, because I do believe what people are calling magic is science that they just don't know what to say about it. Okay. And I think now there are more and more people trying to make the connections, and it has to take the polymath to make the connections. Hi, I'm a polymath. But anyway, all right. So yeah, that's what I will do. I will do a part 2. All right. I will do a part 2.